This episode has been brought to you by the Raw Spirit Team. Building a business can be overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be. We teach small and medium-sized businesses strategies for building a profitable, successful, stress-free business and life. Because guess what? You are more than your business. Through one-on-one training, online courses, and monthly guest experts, the Spirit Team is built on the principle of building each other up in business and in spirit. Try it for 14 days for free. Just head to rawconsulting.com and check out the Raw Spirit Team. Hey, it's Lauren from the Raw podcast. My guest today was Jade Fearon, and she is a lover of fashion and e-commerce, and she's been working as a graphic designer for over 10 years in the industry. We had some really awesome chats about, things to keep in mind in relation to brand. We talked about the C word. I'm talking about Canva and how it might be able to work for your business. We talked about looking at your brand as an overall solution, not just honing in on one thing, but really looking at it in a holistic way and ensuring that, everything is really seamlessly talking to each other. And then later on in the talk, we talked all about e-commerce, and it was super exciting. If you're into e-commerce, if you online shop, if you have a store, if you know anything about heat maps, if you're interested in finding out, about how to convert customers and different ways of engaging with your existing mailing list, we take care of it all in this episode. Enjoy. Hi, I'm Lauren, and welcome to the Raw podcast. My guest today is Jade Fearon. Jade is a lover of fashion, e-commerce, and has been working within the industry as a graphic designer for over a decade for leading luxury and premium menswear, womenswear, and childrenswear brands. After leaving work full-time, she started her own business, Studio 58 Creative, and now works independently for fabulous leading fashion clients and startups. She has tons of knowledge and information readily available for branding, digital content, and web design. And she's working on growing businesses to share as many resources and design services as she can to help lead startups and established businesses to success. She is joining me today to talk about everything branding, and we'll see what else we can come up with. Hi, Jade.
Hi, Lauren. How are you?
I'm good. Your bio is very impressive.
Thank you.
It's so cool. I love when I get to meet all of these, successful entrepreneurs, businesswomen. It's so inspiring, I find.
Yeah, I know. And as you go on, as you network, you meet new inspiring women, and it just, it makes you want to carry on, and it really propels you to want to go on to the next thing.
It does.
It's great to be here and meet you. Yeah.
I can't help but be curious about how, your whole journey into your business started, whether or not you were unhappy or you just wanted to do your own thing. So do you think you could tell me a little bit about how your journey initially kicked off?
So, back in 2009, I just finished my graphic design degree, and I thought, let me just start freelancing on the side, do a little bit of work here and there for various people while I was looking for a full-time job. But at the time, I was working as a fashion manager in a retail store, and then I just built up clients, and I had a small little pool of clients, and then I ended up getting a job in a fashion e-commerce company. It was a little luxury company, family business, and I learned so much there. I started working there full time, so that meant that Studio 58, that it was called then, became just a little bit more of a side biz or a side hustle. And then from that small company, I went on to other bigger luxury companies and menswear, lingerie, swimwear, womenswear. And Studio 58 just became like just something I did on the side. I still had clients. But I think the ultimate dream was to go and become independent.
Yeah.
And then as of last year, I was just thinking, I feel like I've covered every aspect of design. I've done web design, branding. I feel like I've covered the whole scope, and I felt ready to jump and take the leap. And one day I just re-registered Studio 58, added creative on the end, and within a month I took the leap, and it's been brilliant. I had a great first client who I was with for just over 6 months, and since then it naturally evolves. You just meet new people, you meet new clients, and you really sort of get to niche down on what they need and what you can offer. And it's all a process. I think branding and business is a process, and it's a growing thing. But yeah, so far.
Do you find it difficult to to find new clients, or it sounds to me like you're building strong relationships, so probably a lot of your business is coming from word of mouth, not to mention the fact that you've been in the industry for so long that a lot of people would probably be familiar with your work. But are you having a difficult time with that, or is it working well for you?
I feel like I've been a bit lucky so far, in a sense that I have built up the network and the clients, and I've met new people, and everyone always needs something, and sometimes it could just be some help with their social media, or some help with their website, or just redoing their logo, and from that it's word of mouth. But I have been working on building my audience a bit more. I'm starting to learn that side of things on social media, sort of get into connect with my community and build a community, and getting people to understand what my brand is about.
What is your brand about?
I would say it's elevating design for online experiences. And when I say that, I think a lot of people, when they are creating a brand and when they're designing, they might think of different areas individually. So you might think of, oh, this is a post for Instagram, or this is a section of my homepage that I'm just going to edit and add this piece of content. But what I'm really trying to get my clients and audience to understand is that design is a whole customer journey, and it's all about the experience that a customer has as they work through your content. So just because they've clicked on a post, they could then click into your bio. Once they click into your bio, they click into your services. And how is that journey consistent, and how are you presenting yourself with strength as a brand to keep relaying your message?
Do you think that consistency comes down to the way that things look and feel, as well as the words you're using, or is it looks and feel mostly? Because that's what people see initially, isn't it? It's the colors, it's the logo, it's the feel of what, your first impression, I guess.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a mixture of both. I think it's in layers. So I reckon there's like a foundation level, and then there's the pretty look and feel level. And I think the foundation is really drilling down on your purpose and who you are as a brand and what you stand for, and showing a bit of your heart and why customers should love you. And then that can be reflected in your copy. So you've got your whole branding side, and then that sits together with marketing and how you express what you have to offer in your services without being too pushy. And then on top of that, the top layer is the look and feel. So you can go into detail about color, and then there's like color psychology, and certain colors resonate with certain topics and emotions and people. And then you go into typography and the shapes of even down to the shapes of the letters. And
typography is the hardest. I find it very difficult because I've done basic graphic design, and I think I'm the worst at that. It's so difficult. And anyone that can do typography, I think that when you don't notice a font, that's when somebody's done a good job.
That's a good point.
In a way.
I do think, even as a designer, I think there's so many options for different typefaces and fonts, and I
Yeah.
think it can create a bit of overwhelm because you're like, oh, should it be all sans serif or should it be serif? Or there's all these different options, and it's really hard to pick one. And I think when there's too many options, it can create a little obstacle,
Yeah.
which makes it tricky. But yeah, I just think another layer of design and branding would be consistency. I think
Yeah.
that's as long as you're consistent, I think a brand could look really strong.
How do do you think that brand is important or contingent almost on a business's success? Because I guess I'm sure this happens to you all the time, where you would go to a shop, like a website, or look at somebody's socials, or even in a shop on the street, and it's not right. And it doesn't connect to you. And so you probably don't look at that, brand or business that much further. So,
Yeah.
has that happened to you before? And do you think that you need to get the brand right to be successful in what you're doing?
Yeah, you can be particular, especially when you have that creative eye and you can nitpick on certain things.
Yeah. That's a
But
pixel out of line.
literally like one pixel.
Yeah. Yeah.
um there's two things. I think sometimes when you're starting a business, there's a section of it that's working. So if it's working well, if you're selling your product and it's moving fast, a lot of people might not spend much time on design and advertising because their product is selling and they think they don't need to,
Yeah.
because they have their clientele. But I do think it is important to, once you get rolling, to then step back, take a look, and make sure you have that clean brand look and feel, and invest in design, because I just think design obviously is the sort, it speaks for itself, doesn't it? So if someone sees
Yeah.
something and then there was this shop I saw, and then they would remember it by a color or a name. But I think the key to brand success in that sense is you can't be afraid to evolve. I think successful brands evolve. So you might not do it all in the right order. So
Yeah.
maybe you've got a product and it's really selling well, and then you end up on this platform and it's going full speed ahead, but you hadn't even had time to look at the branding yet. You're just concentrating on that success. But I do think there comes a time when you have to look at branding, and that will take your brand to the next level, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
I think that's one of the hard things, is when you're your own boss, and often a lot of us entrepreneurs are running our own show,
Yeah.
literally running my own show, but that wasn't meant to be a pun. It's difficult, I think, sometimes to do everything. So what you end up doing is you end up prioritizing the things that need to
Yes.
happen now. And,
Yeah.
while you work in your business, you also need to work on your business. And, I understand what you're saying when you're talking about how a business, they might have these things that are working well for them, but there's a chance that they haven't stood back and looked at, what their overall look is objectively, which could actually probably increase their return on investment, by 5, 10, 15 times more if they were doing
100%.
it
Yeah.
properly. So I'm dying to know, and you can tell me what you really think, but
Okay.
what do you think about Canva?
So it's a bit of a love-hate, isn't it?
Well, I know it's a love for a lot of people, uh, but yeah, I think it would undervalue sometimes what you do for a living.
Yeah. I would say when I first saw Canva, I was a little bit, like you say, you think it could undervalue what you do for a living. But then I realized that a lot of entrepreneurs and businesses, they need to get things out, designs out fast. They might not have a huge budget.
Yeah.
And Canva allows you to use templates, and it's a really good guide. I find a lot of clients now, when they want their deliverables at the end of a design, they're like, oh, and can I have it on a Canva template?
Yeah.
And you've spent your whole time designing on Adobe or
Yeah.
Creative Cloud. But I think it's I think it's a great useful tool for the future, and I think it allows everyone to have an equal part in the creative game. But I do feel it's a temporary fix. And I think if you really do want to go all out in your branding, it is worth investing in design and getting the guidance from a designer. And then the designer can always create your personalized templates on Canva if it's easy to update.
Yeah, exactly. Because what you were talking about earlier is that, you know, one part about bringing a designer in, you know, at whatever stage your business is in, is that they're looking at the whole picture. And, you know, when you're using programs like Canva, which are fabulous, it's almost the step that you do after you sought that expert advice, where you've been able to get a bit of a, you know, an overview on how it should all look together. And then you can add the pieces in on your own later. But it's about getting that professional, you know, advice, like someone like you. So, you know, what is the best way to communicate with a designer? Because I do know that sometimes I'll use my friend as an example. I'll let her know that I mentioned her here, but she was dealing with a designer, and she had gave the designer a bit of a, you know, like some notes on what she wanted. And the designer came back with a bunch of different options, and she sent them to me. And then we kind of worked out, and I gave her some language around what to use. And tell me if this isn't right with, you know, the way that you like things to go. But I explained to her that it's very difficult because clients don't know what they don't want or what they do want until they know what they don't want. Right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
often it's like, no, I don't want any of that. Okay, well, that's not easy, but is there anything that you did like here? So I guess what I'm curious to know is, you know, are there ways that you recommend people work with designers initially, especially when they're starting from scratch? And then once they get their proofs back, is there a way to maintain that relationship in a way that both people are, you know, not wasting time?
Yeah, I think firstly, it's good to try and find a designer that you can resonate with, because different designers specialize in different things, or they might connect with your brand a bit more than others. I do think that it's a very fine line between keeping the client happy and the designer being happy.
Yes.
It's been trial and error. I think you tried different strategies, but I think what's worked for me is that at the very beginning, getting clear on what the intention is. So when you first get a client, finding out what is the end goal, what do you want to get out of this, what's the vision for the future of your brand. Get them to send you inspiration of what they sort of think they want, because you was right in what you were saying, some clients don't know what they want until they see it.
Yeah.
So if you get them to, you know, Pinterest vision board, something simple, along the lines of what they are thinking, get them to send you as much copy and content they already have, and then I normally start with 1 or 2 drafts of like just to benchmark what they are thinking,
their style.
I mean, you can go all out and create 5 beautiful logos and spend hours on it and send it to a client, and they might change their mind. So it's good to sort of benchmark what they think they want in a couple of drafts, and then evolve that draft. But then obviously have a couple of revisions. I allow maybe 3 revisions. And then after that, it's sort of, you start to charge, because I think once you start to charge, it sort of really gets the client to think, right, I'm only investing about this amount of cash into this project, so let me get it right now. And I find that works.
Yeah, I've worked with in a variety of different roles, and I will tell you that one of the most annoying things in life, and I'm sure you're going to raise your hand up at this and say you agree, is the amount of time changes take when people don't think it takes that much time. So when they go, hey, Jade, or hey, Lauren, or whatever, can you just move that to the side and bring in that? And can I get a different photo? And you're like, hey, bringing in a different photo changes the colors that I have to use because now they don't match, right? Things around, offsets that balance, And, you know, I think that one of the things about designers is that the common person doesn't realize how long things take,
Yeah.
especially when you can go to something like Canva and rock it out in a couple of minutes at
Yeah.
a basic level. I think that there's a lot of miseducation or no education around, the fact that you're creating and you're taking in all these other things into account when you're creating a design.
And I think when you start out as a designer, when you're younger, starting out as a designer, you take on anything, and you say, oh, I'll do this revision, I'll do this change. But I think it comes with experience that, the changes, it takes time, and the time is
Money.
money.
Yeah.
You have to establish a good relationship with your client, so you're both on the same level. So you have a contract as well to make it clear, this is what you both expect, and just have that respect level. And then by the end, if they do want to make changes, they understand that either invest a little bit more to get it right, or swap something out that you were supposed to do, and change the direction of the project. But doing it in advance, and just have a good, clear communication. I think communication's key.
Yeah, I agree with that.
With your client.
Yeah, and it's almost the responsibility, in a way, would you say, of the designer to set the expectations, especially when they're guiding a client through for the first time. The client might think that they have, they can change 50,000 things. And so they don't tell you all the changes at once. They tell you every, they keep adding on, right? Just
Yeah, so it like I said, it comes with experience. Having a project timeline is very good, and setting expectations. So, if it's a 2-week project or 3-week project, and you have a sort of like, I expect this from you by then, and you should get this from me by then, and it kind of just keep that communication clear, I think really helps. But it doesn't come without a lot of trial and error to get to that point. I mean, sometimes you've got to, at one point I was sending clients questionnaires in the beginning to try and get a good understanding of what they wanted, but I found that giving them a questionnaire felt like homework to them, and it could be a bit time consuming. Like, you've got to make them feel like they're not spending a lot of time, you're just taking care of everything, you're handling everything,
right.
And that they can communicate with you easy at any time. But just have that sort of mutual
I like
respect.
the questionnaire idea, but I see what you're saying. Did you get negative feedback on that?
I just found it took longer to start the project off, because if they don't have an idea of what they want, and they've got this questionnaire, it could be hard to fill in without the advice from someone. So now I create a brief, and I speak to them, and I fill in what they are telling me. So I fill out the brief, and then I give them the missing parts for them to fill out, and I feel that works a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, like, I just thought of this idea. I'm sure you've thought about everything already, but those sometimes those quizzes, and it's like, do you like this photo, or do you like this one? Do you find that sometimes people don't know how to articulate with words what they like, that they need to actually give you their Pinterest board, or they need to see it? Yeah.
Something like this, but a bit like this, but then with a bit of this text, and and you're just like, I get it. You become a bit psychic.
Yeah. But do you find that a lot of people are also going on whatever's on trend at the moment?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes they go with what's on trend, or sometimes they see something else that someone's done, and they're like, oh, can you like recreate that sort of thing?
So what do you do with that? Because sometimes what's on trend now won't be on trend in 2 or 3 years, and it's a pretty big investment to change your whole look every 3 years to be on trend. So do you kind of guide them around not doing that? Or if they're wanting to copy someone else, or get inspired by them, do you kind of try to find their own angle, or their own, sort of vibe within that established look?
I think no designer really wants to copy another designer's work, or follow a trend. And I think sometimes you sort of bring them back to their own brand and their purpose, and that their style might be elegant, it might be minimal, it might be bold. Like how their brand comes across, just remind them that this is how your brand looks and feels. And you can incorporate some of, obviously you don't want to take away what they want, you can incorporate a bit of what they want, but I think you have to sort of bring it back down to the level of, this is your purpose, this is your vision, this is your brand.
I mean, designers are artists. That's the other thing. You're creating art, right? And then you're creating art for a client. And so how do you meet in the middle? Do you ever give out something that a client's really happy with, but that you know isn't the right fit for them? Because clients are very difficult when they know what they want.
I think it comes to a point where you can take it as far as you can, being very bold and independent with like, this is the design, this is how it looks, this is great. But if a client knows what they want, I think sometimes, like again, it's a bit of give and take. You have to give them what they want at the end of the day, so they leave happy. When they leave happy, they come back, and it's a bit of compromise. And at the end of the day, they know their brand, they know the reason why they want something done in a particular way, because maybe they've had feedback from a customer, or they really feel secure and confident and comfortable that this thing has always worked for them and they don't want to change it. So there is a bit of compromise, I think, sometimes.
I think it's so funny when you see all the different types of looks and brands, and and some people, they do choose to go it alone. So would you recommend that, when you're first starting out, that it's the best idea is to engage a professional like yourself and then take it from there? Because I do know many people who think that the graphic design isn't that hard, and their effort shows it. Shows that it's not true at all, right? That in fact their quality is subpar.
I think when you're starting out, it depends what kind of business you have. So if we're product based or service based, I think there's so many aspects to business that people will put before design. And I think you have your business plan and your vision, but then I do think branding is the foundation, the next foundation. So finding a purpose, who you are, your mission, getting that right, and then once you've got those components right, then it's time to look at design. And I think in the beginning, when there might not be much budget, or you're not really sure what you like about your look and feel, you can just try and wing it yourself a little bit just to get started. But then there will become a point where, if you really want to take it seriously, to invest in design, invest in the consistency, invest in all your platforms, and it will make a difference to revenue, I reckon. I think design does make a difference to the impression that you give your community and your customers.
I think sometimes, we all know what it's like to walk by a store and it's got the most fabulous window setup. Right? You stop. Like, I know I run by this shop a couple of days a week, and I'm always like, ooh, because she changes it every week. So it's always exciting and interesting and beautiful and fresh. And, that's what you are with your brand. You're creating that first impression.
And I don't think brands should be afraid to evolve. I think evolving and creating something fresh every week creates excitement and allows your customers and community and followers to grow with you and see how far you've come and how much you've changed. And sometimes you can even inspire them to then look at themselves and be like, oh, she's changed her window a couple of times, I might change my homepage a couple of times,
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, can we talk a little bit more about colors and typography? So I know you mentioned earlier about color psychology. So do you consider that when you're working with different customers?
Yes, I do. It does really factor, because, you know, sometimes you might have a luxury client, and the design might be clean, minimal and simple, and the color palette might be a bit softer than perhaps maybe a client that has more of like an edgy streetwear, bold style. I think colors do make a difference there. Different age groups resonate with different colors, and different demographics and different feelings and emotions. You know, so if you're doing something edgy, it's not going to be soft and pastel-y, or if it's luxury, it's not going to be sort of harsh and bold. And it's finding that balance, and I do think it adds to the look and feel.
Yeah, and it's also, do you look deeper at it too? Because I think red is an action color, and I think, yeah, right, because there's a meaning for all the different types of colors. I don't have them all memorized or anything like that.
Yeah.
I just know that I know red's an action color, that's for sure. So, so, you know, I know that when I was doing my brand, that I worked with a designer, and he was I'm very bold, and I wanted something super loud. And the colors that I got were not that. And so I ended up changing them just on my own, because they just didn't suit my style. But I had Adobe, so I was able to make the mods I wanted myself. I think sometimes, at least for me, when I was creating my brand, I saw all these things I wanted, and then I went, but none of them match what I'm doing. Just because I like it, I can enjoy it. I can print out the photo and look at it whenever I want. It doesn't mean I need to incorporate it into what I'm doing. So I don't know. Do you ever find challenges with that? Because that's been tough for me, where I've seen where I go, oh, I want to have all these elements, but then no, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I think it can be you can get quite distracted when you see the next new thing, can't you? You feel like you're getting somewhere, and then you see something else, and you're like, oh, but that would be great, and that would be great. And it can get challenging, and I think we all do it.
Yeah.
We all become inspired by other brands, but I think in the end, it kind of, you find that you find a way of connecting the dots.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of finding out who you are.
And taking the time, I guess, and being patient, right? Because sometimes people want to rush this stuff when it's best to get it right, as opposed to just rolling it out just because you're impatient.
Yeah, I think it takes time, I think, to get it right, and you can feel a bit impatient, but in the long run, it's all about strength and consistency of the brand. If you spend time on it, you can use it for as long as you want, as long as you need. But if you rush it, then you might need to always go back and tweak and tweak.
Yeah.
And I mean, it is about evolving as well, because sometimes you might start off with one brand color for a number of years, and then things change, and you change, your brand changes. And I think the success of a brand is about evolving as well. And it does reflect trends sometimes, because some colors and styles that look great now in a couple of years might just look awful. So
Yeah. Yeah.
It is a little bit about trend as well.
Right. Because you don't want to look dated or
Exactly.
not relevant. Yeah. Yeah. It's tricky. What do you love? I mean, you do so many different types of things. What do you love the most about the work that you're doing?
I think there is so many different things. There's so many different things to love, and there's so many different aspects. I think when it comes to branding, I do like starting from scratch, from the beginning, and really getting excited about, you know, this new company, this new project, and their vision, and really getting involved in what the client is doing. But then I do think when I've worked with more corporate clients that have everything established already, I love working on across the social media and improving the website, because you're literally looking at the whole spectrum in one go. So you're looking at the customer journey from the moment they've landed on the site, or they've come in from a marketing banner, or they've come in from Facebook paid social, and then once they've clicked into that, and they get into your site, and then the product landing pages and the basket and checkout. Like it's a whole journey. You're not just looking at one specific thing.
Yeah.
I find that quite exciting. And when you work in e-commerce, there's, you know, everything's changed now. I've seen a development over the last 10 years where everything was desktop and homepage, and now it's mobile first, and there's video, and there's all types of graphics that are coming into play, new trends. So you're constantly learning.
It's even the stuff where, you know, when you put something in the shopping basket and then you don't check out, and then they track you down and they're like, oh, you forgot. Or, you know, the other day, so I downloaded, I signed up on this website for a lead generator. It was like, I don't know, a blueprint of something. Okay. And while I was there, the person was selling a book, and I went, oh, the book's only $8. Like, it was a free book, and then the shipping was $8 or something. So I said, okay, I'll do that. So by the time I went to check out to get the book, it was going to cost me over $20 American to send it to Australia. So I just went, no, I'm good. I can buy the book in a different website for way cheaper, right? Well, I got an email, and I had put my email in, but I got an email right away, basically being like, hey, you forgot to complete your order. And then it felt to me like 20 minutes later, it might've been an hour later, I got another email going, hey, you forgot to complete your order. And I went, unsubscribe, because I had 2 reminders, you know, for that one thing. So, you know, when you're doing this kind of work in e-commerce, you know, how do you find the strategies that work well for your client, but also don't annoy your customer or work well with your customer? Because I know that I've heard a lot of different conversations around this subject. And so I'd love to know what you've kind of tested to be true for yourself.
I think with past experience in e-commerce companies, that testing, it has been so important. It's a fundamental. So, you know, especially in most recent years, A/B testing, things like.
Can you explain what A/B testing is, just in case our listener at home is confused?
So it's you can A/B test content. So you can send out 2 different types of content to different audiences. So you can, if you've got a number of audiences, you can separate them into 2, perhaps 50-50, and you can send one audience one design, send another audience another design, and then get the feedback of the engagement, the click through, and how they've interacted with it. And I think I've come to learn, that's been a learning curve for me, and I've found it really interesting that testing can make a difference, because we can't make decisions based on what we think is right for the customer. So a lot of the time we can say, right, I think, you know, we should send this out at this time because, you know, that's what I've done before or the customers like it. But you don't really know until you either test your customers' actions, you check the engagement, you look at the activity, send them out a survey, do focus groups. Like, you have to speak to your customer, you have to find out what it is that works for them. And for something like what you just said with the basket, straight away you got 2 emails. I mean, that's something that could be tested, and or if there was a group or a survey or something, just to get that bit right. And even sometimes a customer having just a feedback prompt on your website. You know, you could feed back into the website, and you can take on customer feedback. But it's all about putting the end user first. And I think end use, my 2 favorite words are end use and consistency.
Is end use 2 words or 1 word? I don't know.
Yeah. Connected.
It's, you know what, it's funny though, because you're totally right. A lot of people don't think about the user experience. They build these things and they don't think about how it's going to be used, or they're not consistent across, you know, the platform or whatever it is. But it's definitely, when I've worked on websites before, I've actually sometimes watched people navigate to see where they get stuck or confused. And it's so valuable, you know, because you think you know where people know where they're going. They don't know.
I mean, there's lots of great tools as well, like heat maps and analytics and things like that. And so looking at heat maps, sometimes you can see that the customer, you know, you might spend a lot of time working on your homepage and making it look great, but sometimes they go straight, they don't even look at the content, they go straight to the navigation because they know exactly what they want. Obviously you have to use your homepage to display, it's your shop window, isn't it? But what we found over the years, and what I've learned a lot in sort of like my last set of full-time jobs, is that the homepage, yes, it's your shop window, but people can come to your site through any channel. They can land on the product page first from an ad they've seen, or they can add on a product listing page. And so every single page is important. And every link and every single product and the way you communicate your description is important, and making your brand story resonate through the whole journey.
Yeah. Are you a good writer? Do you do writing as well?
Well, I think I used to love writing when I was younger, but I've recently taken it up a bit more, and I'm writing at the moment an ebooks workbook around all of this branding and web design, and trying to create a documented space where startups can get advice before they start investing. So things that they can look out for themselves, and it's full of tips and advice, and it sort of gives them a guide if they're not ready to invest yet on how they can improve their brand and their website and their social media on their own. And then hopefully eventually that could prompt them to wanting to invest a bit more into their design.
That's a great idea. I'll buy it. So Jade, can we go back to heat maps for a minute? Because I had this niggling sensation that our listener at home is going, what's a heat map? And also I've actually never used a heat map myself, although I'm familiar with the concept. Can you talk a bit about that? Like, where would you get a heat map from? Or do you just look at your analytics and create your own map from it?
So, I mean, these are all things that I've learned on my journey working in fashion ecom. There's things like, there's websites like Hotjar, and then you can put in your page that you want to analyze, and it will track your page over a number of days, and it will show you where your customer has clicked. So if they have clicked on a particular button, I think it's like it goes green, but if after a while, the more they click on it, it will go orange, then it will go red, and the more clicks you have, it will show where it will show that the customers clicked on this section more than they have clicked anywhere else. And it'll just have little hotspots on the page of where your customer has interacted on the page. And it can be quite useful then.
Yeah, it's different from analytics because I can see my page views on my page, but I'm not sure what they're doing when they're there.
Yeah. So like websites like Hotjar, they will allow you to show you exactly what your customer's doing while you're there. And you might get a few clicks at the middle of your page or the bottom of your page, and it can encourage you to then bring it up higher to the top of the page, top of the fold.
Right.
And it can just guide you into a better customer journey and experience.
Yeah. You know what that made me think of when you were talking is how often people work on their desktop version of their site, but when their traffic is mostly mobile.
It's mostly mobile. Yeah.
Yeah. And how annoying when you go to a website and you're like, it's not mobile friendly. You're trying to scroll in and out. You can't say, I just give up.
Yeah. Honestly, I mean, we are so used to working on desktop, especially when you're at work, you're on your desktop all day long, but it is literally all about mobile first. Even, I think there's a lot of analytics now about how much consumers, it's changing every day. I think it might be at like 70% now.
Oh yeah, I think at least, if not higher.
If not higher, people
are
actually purchasing through mobile, especially through this whole pandemic as well. People sitting there scrolling. It's mobile first, and you have to keep reminding people that your mobile is the first thing that you should be
testing on.
Yeah,
check your website on your mobile. Yeah, exactly. And especially what you were talking about with the heat map, if you notice people were not scrolling through to the end, well, if they're on mobile and you have too much content, I feel like you're giving me some homework.
I think the great thing about mobile and designing mobile first is that you can simplify what you need and what you don't need, because on the desktop there's so much space to work with, but on a mobile you have to get straight to the point.
Yeah.
And you have to get there fast. And I think mobile really narrows down what you need on that page to sell, and what you don't need. And some, you don't need a huge amounts of copy, and
No.
it's all about, this is the message, and CTAs. It's more about navigation and an experience.
Yeah. You have 3 seconds to get attention, and if you don't have a call to action, how do people know what to do?
What to do exactly. Mobile is a bit more straight to the point, and I think that's great. I think that helps people to really narrow down on what it is they're trying to say, rather than trying to fit in, a whole story about one particular product. And I think,
I learned the other day something about that, where basically, you want to, I think it was in an interview I did with Kate Butler-Ross. She's a fabulous writer. Anyway, a really good episode. It's, but she was talking, I'm pretty sure it was in that episode where she was talking about how you don't need to tell everyone everything right away. Like, you want to share your story. You want to tell everyone everything, but if you get them hooked, you can tell them your story over time. And and that's exactly it with mobile, isn't it? Where you go, hey, I've got to hook you in, and you stay with me, and we'll build the journey together.
And what a lot of people don't realize as well, that if someone's been scrolling on Facebook and they see your paid social ad, you can tell them the beginning of your story on that ad, but then when you click through, give them the second part of your story, and then as they click through, give them the next part of your story. It doesn't always have to be the same content repeated. You can tell your story over the whole journey, and it's quite like a web of, it's like a big web of a story, but it's consistent at the same time.
What do you think about ads on social where they have, because I know we're all limited with the amount of text we can put in an ad, so so the text itself is not always featured in the graphic clearly. But what do you think about people who put an entire freaking essay in their comment?
I'll be honest, I mean, I don't
read it.
I'm guilty. I don't read it. If it's more than 3 lines, you've lost me, or 2 or 3 lines, you've lost me.
Me too. Yeah.
So that has to be a learning curve for them, I'm sure.
Because they should be A and B testing that.
Put the copy in the post, I reckon. And keep the design space super interactive, and or like we use motion graphics and videos and colors, and keep it simple, I'd say.
Yeah. What are some of the other changes in e-commerce you're seeing? Just before we wrap up, is there anything that you've seen lately that's come up, or anything that you feel that people should be doing more of?
There's so many different aspects to e-commerce. I've seen the way in which we advertise change. So marketing, I mean, this is a different side where you don't really get involved in, but you are involved in, because you have to design for it. But there's a whole marketing side, sort of like affiliate banners and retargeting banners. In the beginning, like, design me a little mini banner so I can just stick it on this site. But now it's become so advanced. There's actual systems now where you have like inline advertising. So you could be, I don't know, scrolling on a newspaper website, and as you scroll, you have ads in between. There's all types of different advertising.
Very annoying for the user many times. I can't close the pop-up. You're like...
And I'm so guilty, because I know it's annoying, but I designed them. But I mean, it's evolved so much. There's video, there never used to be video there. And now you have, product recommenders of things that people have already looked at and clicked on, and it gets me every time. I know what they're doing, but it gets me, and I click in and end up buying.
Yeah. 80% off? Shop.
I'm in. And
Yeah.
I saw a great advert the other day. It was for a car company, and it was an inline scrolling. So I was scrolling through, I don't know, a blog or something, and then it had a picture of a car, and it had little hotspots on it, and you could navigate your way through the
Oh,
car,
cool.
look around the whole car. I mean, it's
So it's like a 360 degrees pop-up ad.
yeah,
Wow. Yeah.
and it's just evolving. So yeah, online marketing design, I think, has evolved immensely. I think mobile design has evolved. I've seen, I think every single brand I've worked with has re-platformed their website to become more mobile friendly. I
Yeah.
think email design is changing, so newsletters and things like that. Before it used to be very limited, but now there are sort of apps and online tools now that can allow you to do a lot more, add a bit more motion, add a bit more interactivity on your mobile. There's lots of plugins, and
Yeah.
how many tools are out there now to
Yeah.
help
Yeah. And
you.
versions of the tool. There's one tool, but 50,000 plugins for it.
Everything.
Like, okay, I don't know. I guess I'll go with the one with the most stars.
Yeah, with the most reviews. Yeah, I think social media is another one. Social media
Yeah.
has skyrocketed as well in the way in which you can communicate with your customer now, and the science behind it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's fascinating. Sometimes I feel, you know, for everyone, including myself, where it's like there's so much to learn, but that's why it's cool when you have specialists in all the different areas.
Yeah,
Because when there's so much to learn, you can't know it all, or you could be a generalist. But that doesn't mean that you're going to be able to understand everything about a certain thing. And that's why people like you are the specialists in what you do. And yeah, and that's why it's so great to be able to chat with you about it. When you were talking about EDMs before, do you have actually, maybe we shouldn't mention program. I was going to ask you a program that you use, that you like, because when you were talking about motion and stuff like that, I was just thinking that the EDM I use doesn't have that.
I've worked with companies that have they've signed up with agencies that allow them to. So before, originally a designer would design the whole email, and then they'll slice it out and
Yeah.
and, and upload different pictures. But there are platforms now that allow you to have little product scroll. You can scroll through your products in an email, or
Oh, right.
you can add motion. It'll still be a GIF, I think, but
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
you can add motion. It allows you to just interact a bit more. You can have a little bit of interaction at the bottom with your social handles and stuff like that.
Yeah, okay. I think what you're telling me is that there's more creative ways of making your normal newsletter look cooler than
Yeah,
it's like sometimes you do the same thing, right? Because you just think, oh, I
yeah,
want to be brand consistent, but you're not thinking that throwing in a GIF or doing a gallery, you could still remain on brand and do that.
yeah, yeah. You can be creative with it. It just takes a bit
Yeah.
more thought, and sometimes you just
Yeah.
want to churn it out. But yeah,
Yeah.
you can. There's a lot you can do
Yeah.
in an email, and obviously there are limitations, but you can work around it, I think. But going back to what you were saying, I think in an e-commerce department there are so many specialists, different types of designers, and there's different types of marketing experts, and you do pick up skills of all of these different. It's such a large place to be in that for
Yeah.
a small business starting up, they probably dream to get to that stage. I think that's something I want to kind of compact some of that information just to help
Yeah.
the new shoots, especially in this sort of time where there's going to
Yeah.
be new businesses and
Oh, yeah, for sure. And yeah, people don't know where to begin or where to start or platform to build on. Do you go with the free WooCommerce? Do you go with the Shopify? It's already there.
mm,
It's yeah. So, well, I look forward to knowing when your book is out. So do let me know. I'll
I
be
will
sure to
do.
pick up a copy.
Thank
Is
you.
there anything that I know we're just coming up to the hour now. Is there anything that, you wanted to talk about that I didn't mention? Any do's and don'ts people should think about? Or do you think we kind of covered most of that off?
I think we kind of covered most of everything. I do
Yeah.
think, it is really important for people to just be original, and we can get, distracted by other things that you just mentioned. What platform do I use, or what fonts do I use? Or there's going to be millions of options out there all the time. And I think you've got to just use what works for you. And sometimes we can procrastinate for so long just trying to pick the right tool or the right thing, and wait for the confirmation that it is the right thing. But I think it's all a journey, and as a brand on your website and everything, just don't be afraid to evolve. Enjoy the journey.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, that's one thing that I always remind people all the time, that you don't start where you're going to end.
Exactly.
I mean, this is, we learn, right? I'm sure I'll look back on podcasts that I've recorded or Facebook lives that I've done in 5 years and go, damn girl, what were you doing? But
Well,
right now,
of it, right?
yeah, right now it feels good.
I mean, I'm saying all this at the same time. I dither over so many things myself. So
it's really easy to give advice, Jade. That's what I find. Let me tell you
taking your own advice.
Yeah, it's always like that. I actually was doing that today because I was DMing some people and I went, they probably won't be interested. And then I went, don't say no for the customer. Like, that's the one thing I teach everyone all the time. Don't say no for the. So I went, okay.
You remember your own.
Yeah, I heard my own voice talking in my head. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, well, thank you very much. That was really helpful. I loved, learning about branding, and I loved, understanding that when you're choosing colors as well, did you even do a little bit of a Google as far as color psychology goes? A and B testing is so important. I'm definitely going to check out that heat map tool. And, I love the fact that, it's okay to evolve as you grow, and that, that's actually probably the sign of maturity as well. And like you were saying before, when your customers are probably evolving with you, it would make sense that they would come along with you for the ride.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love all that. So
Brilliant.
I've got your contacts for your Facebook, your Instagram, your LinkedIn. I'll put all that in the show notes, as well as your Pinterest and your Twitter too. And I'll also link to your website. So if people want to work with you, Jade, obviously they can work with you online, so they can be anywhere in the world. Are you open to that?
Yeah, well, definitely, 100%. Yeah, just always there to chat or give advice.
Awesome. And you'll let me know about the book as well, so that we can put a little shout out.
I will do. Yeah, I will definitely.
Thank you so much for taking the time. It's great to meet you.
Thank you so much. It's been so good.
Hey, thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, please do leave us a review where you listen to your podcast, and share it with your friends. New episodes every Monday.